Hello everyone, my name is Adrian Gonzalez and I would like to introduce you to my latest project, which is to add a mechanic to a tile-based game called Tournamental. Now, the point of this was to add a mechanic that changes the gameplay and makes it more fun for the player to play through the game. The mechanic I chose to do is pressure plates and doors. Now, I was inspired to do these by games such as Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, the old God of War games, and Inside, which all have pressure plate based puzzles at one point or another in the game. So, if you look, you can see that I have two doors over here. Each one is a different color, and if you look even further, you'll see that right next to me is a orange pressure plate, which is the same color as the orange door, and a gray pressure plate, which is the same color as the gray door. These are color coded so you know which door is activated by which pressure plate. Now, the reason I have two different doors for this demonstration is because each one works differently. This orange pressure plate, for example, is a single activation pressure plate, which just means as soon as I step on it, it activates, I can leave, door stays active, so I can still go through here. The gray pressure plate, however, is a constant activation pressure plate, which just means that if I step on it, it will activate, but as soon as I step off of it, it will reverse, and I cannot go through there to finish the level. So, in order to finish the level, you have to use the push blocks to put them on the pressure plate, making sure that it stays active. And if you do that, you can get to the end of the level, finish the level, and move on. I will now show you how I made these and how they function. So here I have the four different blueprints. Here is the C door, or constant door. Now to make this, I made a child of the tile blueprint. I made a plane, made it the same color as the new floor tiles, added a cube, and made it door shaped. I will now move on to how it functions. So, from the very beginning of the game, as soon as you press play, it will automatically set can enter to false and is active to false. This is to make sure that you cannot enter these blocks and that they won't start open. So, if you come down here, you'll see I have two custom events, activate and deactivate. Now these will be explained how they are triggered later on, as they are triggered through these blueprints, which are the pressure plates. So, as soon as these are activated, it will set the is active boolean to true. It will play the opening door sound, which will then it activates the timeline after that, and it'll set the relative location, raising the door up. Here is the timeline that I have set up. And then after it sets the relative location, it will then check to see if the isActive boolean is true or false. If it is true, it will make it so you can enter the tile. If it is false, it will make it so you can't. And down here, as soon as deactivate is triggered, it will set the isActive boolean to false, play the closing door sound. It will then reverse this timeline, making the door go back down to close. It will then again check to see if isActive is true or false, setting it to false, making it so you can no longer enter that door. Here is the single activation door, which is set up the same as the constant door. In fact, this entire blueprint is actually a child of this class. So here's the custom event again. It will activate, and then it will activate this timeline, raising the door, setting the relative location, set it to can enter, and then it will play this sound, but only the one time after you get onto it. I'll now move on to the pressure plates. So this is my pressure plate blueprint. It is yet again a child of the tile blueprint. What I did was I added a plane, made it the same material as the floors, and then added a second cube, which was then shrunk down to make a pressure plate. Now, this one, will, as you saw, changes materials, and we'll get into that in the events. So, this one works with the on entered. So on entered just means that the player has stepped on the tile, and that is what activates this string of events. So, as soon as the player steps on the tile, it will play a sound letting you know that it's activated. It will then set the material to a green color, also showing you that it's activated. Then it casts to the tile door, which this is a instance editable variable here, so that you can select the door as you place them, which will then trigger the activate event, which is over here in the door. Now, as soon as you step off of the tile, it will activate the on exit, which will then set the material back to the original color of that it was before it was activated. It will then cast back to the door again and trigger the deactivate function. Here is the single activation pressure plate, which is built the same way as the constant activation pressure plate, and the only difference is here in the code. So, on entered, it will yet again set the material to the green, allowing you to know that it's done and that it's activated. It'll then cast to the single activation door instead this time, which yet again can be selected as you place them in the level. It will then send that signal to the door to activate, which will run it through this line of code again, and then it will play the sound letting you know that it is done. And that sound is this clicking sound, which is the same for this pressure plate. The doors do use a different sound. They use the sci-fi door. This is the opening one, and this is the closing one. And that is how I have made my pressure plate mechanic for Tournamental. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.